So yesterday, we got some news on Khamzat Chimaev's return. And apparently, the UFC is targeting him versus Kamaru Usman in Abu Dhabi in October at UFC 294. But I still have one big question. If Khamzat Chimaev is going to be returning in October, why was there a 13-month gap between September 2022, when he fought Kevin Holland, and his return date in October 2023? Why was there a 13-month gap between him fighting? If apparently, according to him, he didn't have any injuries, he also was calling everybody out, and I have 3 theories on why he's been out for so long, because there must be a reason. There's no way they would do this. Theory number 1, he's banned from the US and banned from flying, and there was some visa issues, maybe. All of that stuff combined. Visa issues, banned from the US, and I'll tell you why I believe that in a second, and why that could be something that's true. And maybe they were waiting until Abu Dhabi came back around again before they could have Khamzat Chimaev fight again. I'll let you know on that, and I'll talk about that a bit more in a second. But theory number 2. Remember that USADA rule where the fighter doesn't have to go public with the suspension that they're serving? Maybe USADA found a little bit of pulsing picograms in Chimaev's system. Who knows? And maybe, just maybe, they didn't go public with it. And now he's been off for an entire year serving a USADA suspension that we don't even know about. Maybe that's what it is. Or maybe, and here's the only other reason it possibly could be, he suffered a terrible injury. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe he suffered a really bad injury. He doesn't want to tell anyone what it was because in case they might target it in his next fight. Maybe he completely destroyed one of his knees training with Darren Till too much, and then he doesn't want in his next fight for someone to immediately oblique kick him in his leg and try and bend the knee backwards or anything like that. Maybe. But I'm going to go through all of those theories in today's video because I'm going to start it with this. There's no reason why he should have been out for 13 months. This is a fighter who, let's face it, his interview game isn't what makes him famous. The famous thing, or the thing that made Khamzat Chimaev famous, was the fact that he was fighting anyone, he was incredibly active, and he was taking no damage. That's what made Khamzat Chimaev incredibly popular, and he was immediate action as soon as the fight starts as well. Those were the big things. Why would the UFC take away his activity and not have him fight for 13 months? If his comeback fight was just going to be another contender matchup at 170 pounds. You're telling me there was no other choice anywhere in any division, welterweight through middleweight? There was no choice for Khamzat Chimaev to get a fight? Are you kidding me? There was no one down the rankings willing to chance a fight with Khamzat Chimaev? Paulo Costa said yes to a fight with Khamzat Chimaev, but they said you've got to wait until October to fight him. Why couldn't we have Costa versus Chimaev in July and then have Chimaev fight in October? For a belt, maybe. Why was the UFC so sure on, yes, we'll give you a fight, Paulo Costa, but you're going to have to wait until October to get that fight against Khamzat Chimaev. He's not fighting before then. Why was there that date? Was it because of Abu Dhabi? Was it because of that? Was it maybe because he was banned from the US? And I'll talk about that now. It didn't make any sense. So I came up with these theories. Was he banned from the US? Was he banned from flying? Because I don't know if you guys are aware of this right now. It's kind of died down a bit in the news cycle, that is. There's a war going on. And one of the countries involved in this war is Russia. A very good friend of Khamzat Chimaev's, is a Russian dictator in Kadyrov, Ramzan Kadyrov. And Chimaev, after his fight with Kevin Holland, went to visit Ramzan Kadyrov. And they messed around a bit, and we saw that footage of him at Kadyrov's son's MMA fight where it was all rigged and set up for the guy to lose, and all that weird stuff went on, and Chimaev was even doing some wrestling with the guy as well, and clearly letting Kadyrov win. It was all a bit cringe. But the world doesn't forget that. You know what I mean? So you're talking about a guy who, at a time where Russia's at war against the interest of the UN, let's be real, okay? Against the interest of the Allies, Russia's at war. And Khamzat Chimaev's hanging around with He's a war general, Ramazan Kadyrov. So maybe, in order to keep the relationship with Kadyrov and Khamzat good, because otherwise it can be a real bad relationship, and that's what a lot of these fighters from over there get stuck into with Kadyrov, to keep the relationship between them good, maybe they didn't want Khamzat to come out and say, I can't fight because I'm friends with this guy. And they didn't want to put any blame for the inactivity of Khamzat Chimaev on Kadyrov. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe the UFC didn't want to really talk about that situation and come out and say there was problems because of it. Maybe, because the UFC don't want to really mess up their ties over there in case things could go wrong in the future in terms of getting some international relations going on. Who knows? But that was something that I immediately thought of when I was like, why is Khamzat Chimaev out for 13 months? The UFC could find him a fight. There's fights all the time. Bilal Muhammad was willing to fight him at 170. I'm sure they could have went, instead of Burns versus Magny, done Chimaev Magny. Magny was willing to fight him when he was unranked. So he'd definitely be willing to fight him if he could gain something from it and move up the rankings from it. There must have been another reason, so my mind wandered towards that theory of him being banned from the US and having visa complications, and maybe that's what it was. But then there's other things that I want to talk about as well. That secret USADA suspension, dude. I'm so sus of USADA these days. I'm incredibly suspect of USADA. The fact that McGregor only has to pass 2 tests in 6 months to be able to be back in the UFC. That's a fact. It's a 6-month testing window. McGregor has to submit 2 clean tests. 2. And then he's back in. So over that 6-month period of USADA testing window before he returns to the sport, they can test him once every 3 months. If that, maybe they just wait 4 or 5 months and test him twice at the end. Who knows? It's weird USADA these days. Not testing Adesanya, not testing other fighters that are clearly probably on something and do need to be tested. Testing Yuri all this amount of times. We never got a really good explanation of that. Why were they testing Yuri so much? What's going on over there? Changing the rules and levels at which you can actually test positive for once John Jones was coming back. We forgetting about all this stuff that they've recently done? Weird. Really, really weird. But then with Khamzat Chimaev, future big star of the sport, you know, struggled against Burns, but had a dominant performance against Holland. They clearly want Khamzat Chimaev to succeed in the sport so they can take advantage of those pay-per-view sales. Why was he out for a year? Why was Paulo Costa told, we know you want to fight in July, but Khamzat Chimaev's coming back in October? If Khamzat Chimaev is so willing and eager to fight, and he's calling out everyone, I'll fight Alex Pereira at light heavyweight and asking for all this crazy stuff, why has the confirmation been for the longest of times, no, I'm coming back in October? Why were you calling out all these people if you're just going to come back in October of 2023? I remember Khamzat Chimaev calling out Pereira in December of 2022. And now we're hearing, sorry, Paulo Costa. If you want to fight sooner, then it can't be against Chimaev. He has to wait until October. There's something to that no one's asking questions about. There's something going on. Maybe it is an injury. Maybe he did blow out his leg just by being around Darren Till. Maybe his ACL shattered. Who knows? And maybe he doesn't want to really talk about that or bring attention to it because people might target it. And maybe he's been in recovery this entire time and he's been sort of calling out fighters that he knows he's not going to get to maybe just sort of bring attention to the fact that he's still actually good and ready to go, even though maybe he's not. What's been going on with Khamzat Chimaev, man? The ban from the US thing is a real possibility. There is a real possibility that he is going to have some problems because, again, think about it like this. Visa problems. Russia is at war with Ukraine. You, in the middle of that war, are hanging around Russian war generals and dictators in Russia. You know what I mean? Like, Ramazan Kadyrov is a legit nasty dude. I know he's memeable because of the send them to Canada stuff. And he strokes his beard and stuff like that. But he's a nasty piece of work. Ramazan Kadyrov. That's putting it lightly as well. And Chimaev was just hanging around him. Good buddy with him during a war. I feel like maybe whoever's in charge of sort of sorting out visas for people, may have a couple of raised eyebrows at Khamzat Chimaev's recent travels. Sorry, you went to Chechnya, the war-torn region of Russia? And what were you doing in Chechnya, Khamzat Chimaev? You were hanging around a war general in Ramazan Kadyrov. Maybe we don't let you in New York City right now. You know what I mean? Because they don't know. Maybe that's what the UFC's been trying to sort out and say, no, look, he's a fighter and he works for... Maybe that's what they're trying to sort out right now. But someone needs to be asking questions here. He's one of the biggest stars in the sport. I genuinely think he might be top 5. He might not be top 5. So it's McGregor 1, John Jones. Who's after that? Khabib's retired. Rousey's gone. So Adesanya's in there as well. Chimaev's not far behind those names. He's behind those names. But he might be creeping up to number 5 or number 6, 7. He's top 10 draws in the sport right now. I don't think anyone's going to complain at that. He's top 10 draws in the sport. Why? If he's so healthy and there's no USADA suspension and there's no ban from the US situation and he's not injured, why is he out for 13 months? Huh, UFC? Why is that then? Why is this big pay-per-view draw that could be on so many... Look at the bad cards we've had this year. You're telling me the UFC wouldn't have loved to have put him on the Australia card? That had 2 title fights and pretty much nothing else on the entire card? They wouldn't have loved to add him to that John Jones card and massively maybe broken a pay-per-view record without McGregor included? You're telling me the UFC wouldn't love these opportunities? The April pay-per-view card was great. Didn't really need Khamzat Chimaev. Whatever. The May pay-per-view card definitely could have done with a bit of Khamzat Chimaev on there. The June pay-per-view card, sign me up for a bit of Khamzat Chimaev. In fact, put Nunes versus Aldana as a fight night main event and give me Chimaev Costa as a pay-per-view main event. I'll take it over Nunes Aldana. July pay-per-view. Week for International Fight Week. Now competing with Crawford versus Spence, apparently. So that's not the best. It's a great card, 290, don't get me wrong, but International Fight Week, normally we're thinking McGregor, John Jones, Adesanya in a massive fight. Not Volk Yair and Moreno Pantoja too. Why? You know what I mean? Like all these pay-per-views coming up. Surely Khamzat Chimaev would have brought in an extra 100k pay-per-view buys to one of those. And then you just have him fight again in October. Why wait so long? Why wait so long? Why do Burns versus Muhammad on very short notice? Why not Chimaev versus Bilal Muhammad in July or June? June pay-per-view card. Forget Bilal Muhammad Gilbert Burns on the May pay-per-view card. June pay-per-view card, co-main event, 5 rounds, Khamzat Chimaev versus Bilal Muhammad. Why not? Why wait until October? We got 5 months. What's Chimaev doing? What's going on with him? If he's training and in shape, he looks in shape. He doesn't look unhealthy or injured. He looks in great shape right now, like he's ready to make 170 in 6-8 weeks' time. Why until October? I know they want him in October so they can boost up the Abu Dhabi card, but to wait this long when they could have had him 3 times over by now. September last year? There's something going on. Something has to be going on. There's no way they would just say in September of last year, what's the plan with Khamzat Chimaev towards the end of this year, I was thinking. If after September, after his easy fight against Kevin Holland, you know what I was thinking? I wonder if Chimaev fights again this year. It was September. So we had October, November, December. I was thinking maybe they try to put him on that December pay-per-view card. That's what I was thinking. If not, maybe January. If not, maybe February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. October, he's back. Like, in an ideal world, we would have had Khamzat Chimaev fight like a Jack Hermanson. I know he trains with him, but still, if you're that desperate for a fight, you can find a fight. We would have had like a Khamzat Chimaev versus any middleweight on the roster, a Brendan Allen. Like, there's people that have been calling him out, and Andre Muniz instead of the Brendan Allen matchup. Would have had that in December, another fight in May, another fight in June, or one fight in December or January, one fight in June, one fight in October. But we've just been waiting this whole time. And he's been hanging around with a war general in Russia. And he has that relation. And USADA's acting shifty recently. Very, very, very shifty. And Chimaev's not looking injured at all. He's looking fight ready. 13 months? Something don't smell right to me. Something does not smell right whatsoever. That doesn't make any sense. It can't just be me thinking this. That makes literally zero sense why they would ice him on the sidelines for so long. He's a young prospect. 28 years of age he was. I think now he's 29. Why would they waste 13 months of his before his prime? You have enough time, UFC. And before people say, they were protecting him, they wanted to make sure he was ready before they put him up against the top level competition, maybe that's what it is. But Khamzat Chimaev has enough time to fail, or he did have enough time. I don't know if he has enough now, but he had enough time at 28 years of age, being in a title elimination bout position, to have a fight, maybe even fail it and have a chance at rebuilding himself. But they've just wasted that time now. Why? This move to make him sit out for 13 months of time genuinely might have costed them. If, let's say, Chimaev and whoever he's fighting brings 100,000 pay-per-view buys to a card, which I think is a pretty reasonable guess at this point. Chimaev and his opponent, whoever they're fighting on the card, they can bring 100k pay-per-view buys to a card. In fact, if they've got a weak card around them and they're the only big fight on the card, they might bring all of the, say, 300,000, 250,000 pay-per-view buys to the card. The UFC might have lost out on, and this is being generous, 300,000 worth of pay-per-view buys. Or 300,000 pay-per-view buys worth of money by icing him for this long. So please, leave comments down below. What do you think's been going on with Chimaev, and why are we not getting an explanation? I want the first question at the very next press conference to be talking about Usman versus Chimaev in October. And I want someone to ask Dana White, not about power slap, not about if he's seen Ariel's recent comments. I want people to ask Dana White at his very next press conference that he does, why 13 months off for Khamzat Chimaev? There's got to be an explanation. And I bet you anything, Dana White will go, if you ask him, hey Dana, why 13 months off for Khamzat Chimaev? He's one of the biggest stars in the sport. Seems weird for him to randomly take over a year off. I bet you Dana White will go, why 13 months off? Why Khamzat Chimaev 30 months off? Khamzat 13 months? I don't know. I bet he'll do something like that. We got to get a question answered. Why 13 months off? Don't make no fucking sense. And I'm suspicious. Like and subscribe. Toodle pip. See you later. Goodbye.